Okay, perfect.
And it's for giving $1,000 every year. But you only get to become a society member if you tell them. Whether, I mean, because you're doing it.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so
Okay.
might as well tell them, look,
Okay.
I'm doing this. I'd like to get credit for it.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Got you. Very good. Thanks, Deborah. Okay. Gary and his guests. Oh, yeah, Keith.
please join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, do we have any visitors and guests today?
We have a lot of visitors. Steve. Where'd Steve go? Oh, right here. Okay, Cindy's husband. And Mary Jo. Welcome.
I have two guests here. They're both first-year law students at the university who are interning with me, Tabitha Crane and Kaylin Smirchek. So please make them feel welcome.
And I have my wife, Mary Jo Hurdy.
Looks like Chris has a guest as well.
And I have my younger sister, Ann Moore.
And I brought my husband. Nobody knows him. I joke. He's practically a member of our club. He's done so much volunteering. But my better half is Steve Scheltmeyer.
And then we have some online members.
Online, we have Ruth Toffel, Bob Churchill, Charles Sampson, Guy Brown, Kelly Upham, Linda Ladd, and Ted Jacobs.
Awesome.
All right, we have the blue buckets for Polio Plus. Where's my dollar bill? There we go. Got to set the example. All right, any happy bucks today? All right, go ahead.
He's waiting.
Well, I was pleased to notice that our upcoming newly selected RI International President is affiliated with what is now Truman State, and he'll be the second Truman State President. And Mary Jo started her career at Truman State, and no known connection, but you never know.
All right. Is that where you guys met?
No, I'll collect your dollars too. Very good.
Al, is that where you guys met? No? Okay. All right, Sean.
All right, I'm so happy. We had such a great year last year with the greeters. Would everybody give me 1 second and stand up if you were a greeter in the last 6 months? So since, July.
All right.
Thank
Good
you all
job.
so much. Okay, we filled the year, and then this next year we only have 12 spots to fill between now and June, and we're totally filled between now and the end of February. So you guys are doing a great job, and I'm putting in 5 happy bucks because I'm so appreciative. Thank you.
All right, good job. Thank you.
Very good. I also have 5 happy dollars for the 5 days of the week that everybody's helping provide transportation for our exchange student Ella, who's living with us. So I think Marty was Monday, Ann was Tuesday. Who was Wednesday? I can't remember. Jody Miller, okay. Ted was this morning. Rachel is tomorrow. Nadeja's helped pick up after school because she's a French teacher at Battle. It's all working out so well so far. Just got a few more weeks to go, but it's been great, good fun, and I appreciate all the help.
All right, good job. Thanks. Hey, Josh, is Ted making her ride a bicycle?
No, but I did make her ride a bicycle. She wrote about it in her report, and she said she was very tired after we made her to ride all the way from our house to downtown.
All right.
I'm happy because my granddaughter will sing the national anthem at Wednesday night's basketball game.
Outstanding. All right.
Nice.
Any other happy bucks? All right. job. All right, go ahead. You want to take this one?
We just have a couple of community announcements, and then we'll invite everyone else to share theirs as well. But there's a lunch and learn happening at the Daniel Boone Regional Library coming up on January 14th. It's about data centers and their impact. I believe there is a data center coming to Columbia, so it may be. Oh, it's not coming? Okay. Okay, good to know. Okay, good to know. Misinformation. Got it. Okay, it was interest. Okay, well, regardless, if you're interested in learning about data centers and their impact, that event will be happening at the Daniel Boone Regional Library. And then just a shout out for Give 5 United Way's Gift 5 program. It's a local program that matches innovative leaders who are age 55 and over with opportunities to give back. If you are interested in learning about it and then joining the next cohort, do you want to talk about it? Go ahead. Sorry. The days for that three-day course are January 22nd, 29th, and February 5th. But you can learn more at United Way's Heart of Missouri website. Just Google search Give 5. That's how I found it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to go through the Give 5, and I got to tell you, Lorraine did an absolutely outstanding job. She was so organized, and it's an all-day affair, and they serve lunch. I didn't get to go to lunch all the time. I came back to the Rotary meeting on Thursdays, but she always had a little lunch basket for me all the time. But it was going around to all the not-for-profit companies or organizations in Columbia, and it was amazing how much I learned. I've only been here for 5 years, but I feel like after that I've been here for 20, 30 years learning about all the great not-for-profit organizations we have in Columbia. So I just want to really encourage you, if you've got the time, to go through that program, because Lorraine will shepherd you through it and do a great job.
Okay, before we go into the next slides, does anybody else have any community announcements they want to share? Nope? Okay, awesome. Just a reminder that January is Vocational Service Month, and so I just wanted to share 4 ways that you can take action during Vocational Service Month to kind of help celebrate this pillar, but volunteer for one of our service projects. We have 13 service projects, I think. Is that right, Mike? That you could volunteer for throughout the year. Another one, guide and encourage others through mentorship. There are young people looking to enter career fields if you're interested in mentoring them in that direction. And then talk about your profession with others and take time to learn about theirs. And then Rotary International has these Rotary action groups. You may be familiar with them, but you can learn about how to lend your expertise to some of Rotary's action groups across the country. You can learn more about it by searching Rotary Action Group on myrotary.org.
You can tell we rehearsed this, right? Our club membership. What's one area we really need to work on, because we've had a number of members die in the last couple of years. So our goal is 105, and right now we're at about 92 members. So get out the vote, get talking to people, pass out the brochure, and let's get some more members to join. The other goals there, you can see that annual fund, we're at $14,000 was a goal, and we're already at $10,000. The Polio Plus Fund, we always give $1 each time, a lot of times for the Polio Plus Fund, so we're up to $100. The benefactors, we had 2, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later. Deborah will talk about that. And then some other club goals, social activities. That's an easy one. We had 10 for a goal. We've already done 5. And the service projects. I've been spending a little bit of time with Mike and learning how to do the DAC-DB and so forth. So right now, it's really interesting and you learn a lot. But anyway, we've got 6 that are closed right now, and we still have 7 that are underway. So there's no doubt in my mind we're going to meet that goal by over 1. New members, we're looking for 4. The RILA participation, we always budget for 2 individuals, and we had 3 high school students attend that, so we're in good shape there. And the media stories about the club. We've done a good job on that, too, by putting stories in DAC-DB, also the district newsletter, and then all the things that happen with the turkey fry. birthdays?
Yeah. Correct. We have. Yep, the year ends June 30th, so the goals that we just covered, we would like to be able to achieve as many of those goals as possible by June 30th. So thank you, Raleigh. Just a shout out for birthdays. Happy birthday this week to Mark Stevenson, James Hoffman, Barbara Churchill, Mari Scala, Jerry Kennett, and Carl Korshkin. Happy birthday to all of you for celebrating birthdays this week. Happy wedding anniversary to Chuck and Carrie Doss, which was earlier this week. 22 years of marriage. And Rotary anniversaries. Happy Rotary anniversary to Jim Elliott, Scott Orr, Jolene Schultz, and Chris Watkins. So lots of years of service on there. So, yeah. Okay. Do you want to cover programs?
On Programs Committee, we've got January, Josh and Neil are doing all the scheduling for that. And then February, Mari's got it. March, you can see right down the list. So if you've got somebody that you really like to have attend and present, get in contact with one of them and they'll make it happen for sure. We're going to start showing this at what's coming up in the February meetings and so forth. We've got Dr. Jeff Klein, who's the superintendent of CPS. John will be here from the Columbia Rotary Club Foundation. And then also we've got Lisa. Lisa, are you going to be talking? All right, great job. Good job. All right, we're going to give a test after it. Okay. And then Dr. Joel Rhodes will be here from the State Historical Society. I'm looking forward to that one. The Foundation Committee, Deborah.
So, you all know what Paul Harris Fellow is. That's $1,000 donated to the Rotary Foundation in over any period of time. But you might not be as familiar with Paul Harris Society. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. And that is a commitment to give $1,000 each year to the Rotary Foundation. And several of our members do give $1,000 each year. It can be to the annual fund, the Polio Plus Fund, or any of the global grants. So it's an ongoing commitment, and that makes you a member of Paul Harris Society. You don't have to do it, or you can do it online, you can do it, or you can make the commitment by phone or by email. But the important thing is it's not just accumulation of how much you've given, it's actually stating the intent that going forward you're going to give $1,000 each year. So you have to tell them that, or you're not recognized as part of the society. It doesn't have to be all at once. It can be $250 a quarter. It can be $85 a month. But it has to be the total of $1,000 every year from the 1st of July through the end of June. And so in recognition, you become a Paul Harris Society member, and you get a special pin with like a banner. They call it a chevron. And we have a Paul Harris Society pin to present today to Jim Owens, if you would please come forward. So Jim has made this commitment. This is his pin. Beautiful. Thank you very much. And we have a certificate that also states he is now a member of Paul Harris Society.
Like the Wizard of Oz, giving me my certificate.
Okay. Okay, great.
Thank you very
so,
much.
thank you. Do you want to say anything?
Just it's been a joy to be part of the organization. I'm constantly amazed at the significant impact it has on the lives of others. That's been a very positive aspect of this, me being involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'll talk about benefactor next week. Thank you.
Okay. Mike, do you want to cover community service?
We haven't met for 3 weeks, right? So I have to go back in history a little bit. So the last 2 weekend of bell ringing, that was Friday and Saturday, December 13th and 14th and 19th and 20th. Got pictures of most of the people. Here's some of them right now doing their thing. We appreciate Ted bringing his dog. That was a big deal, believe me. Next slide, please. There's a few more folks who did that, and not all the ringers are shown. I didn't get all the photos. I was out of town, but thanks again to everybody that rang the bell. One more slide about bell ringing. Here we did 135 hours of shifts work as a club, and that's our members, 35 club members and guests, or their guests. We raised, and I'm going to look to Sean Spence, who said he would tell us how much he raised, and I'm going to bring the mic over to Sean.
$3,518.17, which is $9.13 away from what we did last year. We were third last year. We'll be, I don't know where we are yet, but we'll be somewhere third, second, fourth, somewhere in there this year. You guys did such a great job. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, that's great work. Next slide, please. So again, many thanks to the December Food Bank volunteers. Here they are right there as a group, but I'm going to show you a few more slides, and you'll see that our next food bank, and I'll send the sign-up sheet around right after these announcements, is Tuesday, January 20th. It's always the third Tuesday of the month. Next slide, please. Some action shots of the good folks who were there. Next slide, please. More action shots of folks who were there. Didn't get everybody, but thanks again for volunteering at a very busy time of the year, because the food bank needed us, because the students are gone and they needed Rotarians to be there to do their thing. Next slide, please. Welcome home KP duty. This was December 23rd, and you'll see that Marty actually brought out his Christmas sport coat, with lights on, by the way. And we had pork chops and baked potatoes and some veggies, and then ice cream sundaes, I think, with pie. So bottom line is a great opportunity. We do that every fourth Thursday of the month. The next one is January 22nd. The sign-up sheet will be coming around today. If you've never done it before, it's very worthwhile. Next slide, please. The blood drive was a great success. 23 units of blood was collected. We had 22 donors. 27% were first time, as you see. And I have to say, looking at Rachel, thank you for this, because she's part of our community service committee and our co-president, and she handled this blood drive and took it on when she was very busy otherwise, so thanks for that. Next slide, please. I want to show you the members who donated. On the left were our actual donors, and so thank you to each and every one on that list for donating your time and your blood. Our attempted donors, I was one of them. We appreciate you guys coming in and trying to do your thing. Next slide, please. And here's a few pictures of the volunteers, because we not only donated blood, but we also facilitated the drive. So those are some good volunteers. Next slide, please. A few more volunteers, and a few folks were camera shy and we didn't get them. So thanks to everyone for participating in the blood drive. Next slide, please. So Mexico Brook Project. Recall we do this every year, and thanks to Jim and Judy Elliott, they facilitate taking books down to kids in an orphanage down in Mexico. We've been doing it for maybe like 15, 16 years now. This picture was taken on Saturday. Judy sent it to me. She's getting ready to board here at Como. And she said, by the way, American Airlines is shipping our books for free. So anyway, they are down in Mexico as we speak. I don't know when they're going to deliver the books, but it's happening. Next slide, please. Reminders about community service. We'd ask, one, if you do a community service, it's a makeup if you let our secretary know. The second part is that club service, and that's a little different, things you do in your meetings and that kind of thing, that's really helping the club. It's not in the community doing community things, but if you do community things, 24 hours of community service earns a Rotarian at Work t-shirt. And it really is about service about itself. So how did that play out in our first 6 months? So the Rotary year ends June 30th. So December 31st, these are the data. So next slide, please. Recognize these folks who've earned a t-shirt this Rotary year. And I'm not going to go through everyone's name, but if you are on this list, I would ask you to stand up. Okay, if you're on the list, please stand up. Stay standing for just a minute. We need to give them a big hand. So I appreciate that. And if you, and Walt, will you model the t-shirt for us, please? Yeah, if you need a t-shirt because you haven't earned one, or you earned one last year and now it's all messy. So that's the shirt. Flip the back of it, which is the most important piece. It's a downtown Rotarian at work. So that's how you earn it. You can look at your own report and figure out what your hours are, or you can see Tony Roberts and myself or Walt, and we'll tell you what you got. I think that's it. Next slide, I think, is, oh, that's Walt.
I've been spending a couple hours with Mike, and I'm a little slow learner, but I wanted to learn how to do DAC-DB. And then he came up with this slide to show you how to log into DAC-DB and find your own community service hours. So it's really easy to do. The first time it's kind of hard, but the second time and the third time it worked really well for me. But I just wanted to show you what you can get. I blacked out the name there, but you can either contact me or Mike or Tony or Jim, and we can print out a copy for you on exactly what your hours are. Because sometimes we miss some of those hours. I know I gave one to Ann and Carl here a few minutes ago to show you what the hours are. Membership. Donate your old Rotary magazines. Once again, bring in your old Rotary magazines. We'll put a sticker on them and drop them off at lawyer offices and different places throughout town to say, hey, come and join our Rotary Club as we go forward. Claire brought in about 10 copies of old copies for me, and she wanted to make sure I took her name and address off it, so don't worry, Claire, I'll take it off that. And here's our next Rotary Social, will be January 28th out at the Courtyard by Marriott. I never even thought of that place before, but Mike took his wife out there and had a very romantic evening out there, so that's where we're going to try. And then at Texas Roadhouse. This is also going to be a fundraiser. And Keith was talking to me about a year ago about getting a social set up there. We won't all be able to sit together, but at least it's a fundraiser and we get 10% off, or 10% will go to the club. So put that on your calendar, the Roadhouse, on Wednesday, February 25th. And if you buy a gift card, that'll count towards the money that we get back. And then we've got Uprise Bakery will be on Wednesday, March 26th. Delilah's at April 23rd. And I turn over to fundraising.
We don't have anything specific to fundraising, but I did want to share the results of our top 5 local nonprofits. And the reason I put this under fundraising is that it's the proceeds of our fundraisers that support the nonprofits. So we received almost 70 votes from our club, and that gave us our top 5 recipients. And I'm happy to share that our top 5 recipients are Sleep in Heavenly Peace, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Heart of Missouri CASA, Love Columbia, and Central Missouri Humane Society. So these organizations will each receive $1,000 from the Rotary Club of Columbia. And we'll invite each of them to a meeting to say a few words before the start of a meeting about their organization and then present them with a check. So, in addition to this, our board also did vote to support a couple of other things, including the food bank with a $500 gift, and then we will be providing ongoing support for the scholarship that we have at the University of Missouri, the Tom Donovan Scholarship. So, was that right? That's right. Yes.
Let's do a little quick coordination here. Kelly, will you be here next week? Okay.
I think I will.
Claire, will you be here next week? We'll get you set up and give you $1,000 check.
I love it. Yes, I'll be there next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kelly Upham, okay. All right, we can each week we'll give out $1,000 though, so we. Okay. We'll work it out for you. No problem at all. All right. Next week's speaker will be Jesse Stevens. He's a professional engineer. You want to say anything about that?
I was just going to be talking about the Boone County Regional Sewer District. So some of you might be, on that sewer district and find it kind of interesting. He's going to be talking about their current bond issue and some improvements to the system that helps everybody out, whether you think about it or not.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. They do a lot of testing now, too, to find the COVID and so forth.
That is correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That'll be interesting to see. And, Jeff, are you ready? Well, come on up. Got to give Jeff a rough time, right? Here you go, sir. All yours.
All right, very good. Well, It's my honor to introduce our guest speaker today. He served with distinction as a Division II circuit judge for 14 years. For those of you who are history buffs, there are only 3 individuals who've served as circuit judges in Division II since it began 55 years ago. Judge Frank Conley, who I'm sure many of you remember, the judge who will be speaking here, and some other guy whose name escapes me. But I knew when I took this job I had big shoes to fill, because our guest speaker was known as someone who had a passion for justice, who suffered no fools, and who importantly respected the rule of law. And since he has left the bench, those qualities have not diminished. I think it's important to note this. You know, people who serve as judges or at the end of their careers, they're free to do whatever they want when they retire. If he wanted to retire to the state of Florida or go to Jamaica, he would be perfectly entitled to do that, but he hasn't done that. He continues to advocate for the things and causes that he believes in and continues to contribute to our community and our bar. I'll give you just one example. I can speak from experience as a judge. One of the most nettlesome and difficult types of cases that we handle as judges in our system are divorce cases. Judge Oxenhandler, of his own time and not charging 1 red cent, has, since he has left the bench, volunteered to mediate difficult divorce cases. And let me tell you something, that's a big deal. When he, of his own time, without charging 1 red cent, gets parties together who have reached impasses and can reach a resolution, it just makes their lives and the world a better place. He doesn't have to do that, but that's just one example of what he's done since he's left the bench. So it is my honor and my privilege to call him my friend and to introduce him here today. Let me give you our next speaker, our own John Grisham, Judge Gary Oxenhandler.
Like old home week for me, really. The opportunity to hug Ann and Cindy and see Steve and talk to Raleigh and see Keith over there and have Ruth Toffel Wi-Fiing me right now. Stacy Priest, my next door neighbor. It really, I'm an old Rotarian. I belong to Northwest, and as you were flashing up there, going to the food bank, I remember going to the food bank, and we packaged hot dogs. And we packaged thousands of hot dogs, and I can say I have not eaten a hot dog since that date. And so it's a real pleasure. Can I pull this out? To come out? It's a real pleasure to be here today and talk a little bit about the life of a murder. And I want to talk a little bit about how it came to pass. But before I do that, you were born, Judge Harris. Thank you for your lovely comments. You were born here. What year? Yeah, you do. Okay, and I came here in 1965. So ruling you out, who's been in Boone County the longest? Anybody longer than that? And how long? Oh, right. Well, this is a tough one. You're ruining me here. I can't, because I want to give a book away. And so, okay. Anybody beat 1950? What year? Okay. Anybody beat 1948? 1948's the winner. Hey. I signed the book to my favorite Rotarian. So I grew up in St. Louis, and my folks owned a pawn shop. And in high school, I was a pawnbroker. And I got here in 1965. I met Janet on her first day of school. She was from Kansas City, and we just celebrated our 56th wedding anniversary. And you know, it's important that in that regard, the inscription in the book is to my lovely wife, Janet. Our 56 years together have passed in a blink. You deserve a medal. And that's what my dad said to her when we were going to get married. In any event, I graduated undergraduate school in 1968. Going to law school was a complete lark for me. It was the summer of '68. I was talking to my then-to-be law partner and fourth grade buddy, Marvin Toffel, Ruth's husband, and we were talking about, what are you going to do? We're going to get drafted. And he said, well, I'm going to go to law school. Why don't you go? And I said, that's a great idea. I think I'll go to law school. And it was very easy to get into law school back then, and they did everything they could to kick you out, though. Now it's reversed. It's very hard to get into law school, and they do everything they can to keep you in, and I think that it worked out for me, but I think the current approach is a little bit better. So I started law school in 1968 in September, got drafted on March 14th, 1969. Actually, Janet got drafted too because she just had graduated and gotten her teaching certificate, and after basic training, we were both at Fort Leonard Wood, and she was teaching there, which was an incredible challenge for her as a brand new teacher and having 2 or 3 students come into her class new every day and 2 or 3 students leaving. There were about 35,000 people living on Fort Leonard Wood. In any event, I got out after 21 months, 16 days, and a few hours, and I was back in law school. I graduated in '73 and practiced law with Ruth Toffel's husband for 29 years. And then I got an unusual call. And just like my going to law school, meeting Janet, getting to the bench was sort of an unusual event. And that is, I got a call one day from Milt Harper. And many of you would know Milt Harper. He is now gone, but an attorney in Columbia, very well respected, farmer judge, farmer prosecutor, and said, hey, would you come over and talk with me and Bill Powell, who is another lawyer here in town. This is Big Bill Powell, the All-American football player. And, you know, I was stunned by Milt's call because Milt and I were not friends at all. We were involved in a case in 1975, 25 years before, where he was the prosecutor and I was defense counsel. It was a very horrible case to be involved in, and we did not get along, and we were able to sustain that not getting along for 25 years. So I was really stunned by the phone call. But I went and met with them, and they said, look, Judge Hamilton's going to go to the Court of Appeals. There's going to be an opening for a judge here, and we would like to support someone who's been in private practice, not drinking from the public trough for all their years, who knew what it was like to stay up all night preparing for a case and then have their client not show up in the morning. And so I asked Janet. She said yeah. And I asked my son Josh, who was in law school and was going to be joining us, and he said yes. And I asked Marvin Toffel, and he said yes. So I said yes. But Hamilton didn't go to the Court of Appeals. But a year and a half later, Judge Conley turned 70 years old, mandatory retirement for judges, and it repeated itself. And I ended up on a panel with Skip Walther and Debbie Daniels before Governor Holden. And it was real interesting because I didn't know what I was doing. And so Bruce Wilson was sort, and Nancy Wilson were sort of the politicos that you'd go and talk to if you had anything going on in the election realm. And he held office over at Murray's at the bar. And I went over there and I introduced myself and I said, you know, I'm going to try and get this judgeship, and what do I need to do? What should I be thinking about? And he said, well, how much money have you given to the governor's campaign? And I said, well, I've never given any money to the governor's campaign. And he said, well, Gary, this will be an interesting learning experience for you, which, of course, it turned out to be so. I never gave any funds to the governor's campaign. I always supported local politicians. And I ended up on a panel with Skip Walther and Debbie Daniels. And as I sat in the governor's office waiting to be called in, I thought, you know, this just to hang out with these two people, that's an honor in and of itself. And I got a call 4 days later, and I was taking a deposition, and my secretary knocked on the door and handed me a note and said the gov's on line one. And I thought, God, I don't know what to call this guy. You know, governor, but I picked it up, and he said, Gary, Governor Holden, and I understand you're in a deposition, so if you want me to call you back, I'll be happy to do so. And I said, no, I'll take the call. And he said, I'd like you to be the judge. And within 10 days, I was on the bench, and I remember my first day as I walked into the courtroom, and the courtroom was, I'm thinking I was in 1 West. And it was just mobbed because everybody was there to see the new judge fumble, and I was trying not to do that. But as I walked in the door, Judge Azel stopped me, and she said, you know, you only go into the courtroom for the first time once. She said, take it in, you know, and be sure to say, please be seated. And so I went in, and I did try to take it in, and at some point everybody sat down. I don't remember saying, please be seated. Maybe they just tired out. And the first case that I had was a plea of guilty to a felony with a Spanish interpreter, which is like the worst thing that you can deal with in a plea of guilty. And the second one I had was with a hearing disabled person using a sign language interpreter. And so all I'm thinking of is Conley or Crane set me up for this, you know. And I, of course, accused them of that over the years, and they always denied it. And so I had a great time on the bench, tried over 200 jury trials, got to sit with Supreme Court on a couple of occasions, and it just was working with really wonderful, caring judges and a great support staff. And I retired, mandatory retirement at age 70. I started mediating and arbitrating. I'm still doing that. And then in 22, I thought, you know, I need to do a writing. And that was the earliest stages of the life of a murder. And that I called my court reporter, Crystal Murphy, who worked with me for 14 years, who is now a reporter in Jackson County. And I said, let's make a list of the interesting cases. I thought that was a logical thing to do. This was one of the cases. And then I went and talked to Alex George over at Skylark, who's written a bunch of books. And I said, Alex, what do? I want to write something. And he said, well, good writers, 8 o'clock in the morning they stop. They leave their phones in the other room. And till 1 o'clock, they don't do anything but look at their laptop. And if they write a word, that's great. And if they write a sentence, that's awesome. And if they write a paragraph, that's super. And I go, well, that ain't me. You know, I mediate and I arbitrate, and I like to play golf and I play handball, and there are a lot of things I want to do. And he said, another person said, well, this will be an interesting learning experience for you. Good luck. And I just started writing. There were a lot of other people that I spoke to, but I just started writing. It didn't start out as a book. It started out as a writing. And it was a 3-year project to publication. And I think in about a year, I started calling it a manuscript. And in about 18 months, I was able to say, I'm working on a book, you know. And so talking about the case itself it's about the disappearance of Rebecca Abbott Doisy, who was a 23-year-old college student at MU. She was a waitress at Ernie's. She was beloved. And on August 5th, 1976, she mysteriously disappeared. And there was a person of interest by the name of Johnny Wright, the last person to see her, but they couldn't turn the corner on the evidence. And 9 years later, a guy by the name of Michael Simmons got busted in St. Louis, was afraid of going back to prison, and wanted to play Let's Make a Deal. And as a result of that, the evidentiary issues started to fall, and in November of '85, 9 years after Becky's disappearance, prosecuting attorney Joe Mosley was convinced by a cop by the name of Chris Egbert to issue a warrant. And the story, it's sort of about a murder, but Becky Doisy disappears in the first days of a 34-year history. And it really, it's about the people that were in the story. And it's about the cop that sat there the first day when Becky Doisy's sister walked into the police station and said, "My sister's missing and something's wrong." And that cop, Chris Egbert, followed the case for 34 years. And he followed it through his retirement. And he testified 4 times in the trial, 3 times for the state and once for the defendant. And it's a story about, I didn't want to be drawn into the story, but I realized that I had some things to say, and I wanted to share them, some insights that I had about how I got to where I got to be, wherever that was, the story about how a judge analyzes things, and that it was the story of the investigators and the prosecutors, and there were 2 great prosecutors that participated, a guy by the name of Richard Hicks and a number 2 prosecutor by the name of Cecily Dollar. And I want to read something real brief here. And this is chapter 25, and it's entitled Meet Prosecutor Richard Hicks. And all of the characters, all of the players are in the first person. I decided that's how they had to tell their story. I was born in Dothan, Alabama in 1967. I'm 55, a young-looking 55, but 55 nonetheless. My mom was a school teacher. Everyone called her Betty Jo. My dad was a Baptist minister, so he was Brother Ronnie. They taught us there were a lot of good people out there, a lot of bad. Nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. In God's eye, we're all alike. When the game is over, both the king and the pawn get put back in the same box. I like that. Though I was clearly molded by my folks' belief, I never wore my religion as a badge. I still go to church. I guess that's a badge, jumping ahead a little bit. I really think that growing up in church had a big carryover impact on my decisions in life. I had done a lot of public speaking in church and in the plays that we performed. I guess I was a preacher myself. My dad would say, "Hey, Rich, I want you to pray. I want you to pray about this." And he'd give me a topic. Come Sunday, I'd be preaching. I take all of that with me when I go into the courtroom, particularly when I'm responsible for closing argument. I love closing a case. It gives you a chance to tell it like you really think it is. Richard Hicks, join me up here, the prosecutor in the case. And he deserves a round of applause. And I will tell you, Richard and I were not buddies back in 2011. I would say we had a very professional relationship. In the years that followed, we're buddies, right? We love each other. Yes. And we share lots of things and try and be supportive of one another. But back then, he was the prosecutor, I was the judge, and particularly, we had a real interesting issue that we dealt with, didn't we? In this case and others. But in this case, yes. Share that. Let's chat a little bit about that.
Oh, so I'm sharing it. Well, so we didn't have a body in this case.
He's full of crap already. I'll tell you that right now.
We didn't have a body in this case, and the case was based upon circumstantial evidence. We didn't have any DNA. We had one witness that could identify the body in the back of a vehicle, and the defendant saying, I had croaked this, B-I-T-C-H, and things got out of hand, right? So we were trying to connect that individual to that night, other than just through Harry Moore, who was our main witness. And Johnny Wright had a girlfriend that he had his own house, but he also had a girlfriend that he would often stay there, and it was right up on there, Providence, right?
No, well, her house was. No, in the Eastville.
Eastville, that's right. That's right. And what had happened is that the night that Becky Doisy was last seen with Johnny Wright, the next morning, Johnny Wright's girlfriend calls in a police report saying somebody came into our house and took some tools, took a rake, a shovel, and I think a hoe is what she was reporting, something like that. But took nothing else. That's all that they took. And so we were trying, some of the evidence was that Johnny Wright that night had said to Simmons that, well, I off-day BITCH over in Columbia, he said this years later, and they're not going to find her. She's 6 feet under. So we're saying, okay, how do you bury somebody? You use a shovel. You use a rake then to, clean it all up. But even though we didn't have any evidence that it was Johnny Wright that had gone into the girlfriend's house, but who else would know it was there and only take that? And we wanted to get that evidence in. And in fact, in the grand jury, I think I can speak about it now, found that to be really the most compelling evidence was...
No, you can't talk about it.
that these tools were taken. Anyway, long story short...
So there's a motion in limine filed by the defense, and a motion in limine, one part or the other says, we don't want this piece of evidence to be even mentioned in the trial because it's so prejudicial. And so the defense files a motion in limine, and the parties come into court. No jury's present. In the first instance, I think you argued it twice.
Yes.
And that once was about a month before, and then once was maybe a week before. And I was not moved by the argument.
You were not.
I was not moved by the argument. And I wasn't moved by the argument, and the reason is there's an analysis in the law between logical relevance and legal relevance. And it's logically relevant that these tools were probably used. However, when you look at it in terms of legal relevance, you also look at the prejudice that it might present. And I did not see any link other than super coincidence. There was no fingerprint that Johnny Wright left when he burgled the house. No one saw him in the neighborhood. No one heard him say, I stole these tools. And so they were having a very hard time convincing me. And in the first hearing we had, I said, well, I'm going to think about this. I'm not inclined to do it, but you wanted more time. And I said, great, you can have more time. And so there was a second hearing.
Correct. And that's where we had come back and said, we re-interviewed Simmons, who had been the original, he was the impetus behind all this, because we had said, his original statement was, well, they're never going to find her. He claims they're never going to find her. We went back to explore that a little bit more. Well, what else did he say about not being able to find her? And he said, well, I remember him saying, they won't find her because she's 6 feet under. So that's what we take back to Judge Oxenhandler to say, look, we're not talking about not finding her because they dumped her in a ravine or, discarded her body some other way. 6 feet under, pure implication there is that's a term for it. We dug a hole and we buried her. So we took it back saying, hey, we think, Judge Oxenhandler kept saying, Mr. Hicks, you're jumping to light speed. Mr. Hicks, you're jumping to light speed. You're not connecting this stuff. So we were just trying to connect it, and it still wasn't enough.
Well, it turned out, and I remember one of the things you said, well, Judge, what if we had a video of Mr. Wright going into Westlakes and buying, a shovel? And I said, well, that didn't happen, did it? And you said, no. And I said, move on. and this is something, this goes to something real special that happens in the law, that happens when you have lawyers arguing things. And that is, I ruled against them. That did not come into evidence. I saved their butt in the Court of Appeals because they'd have gotten reversed. And if I had let it in, and we still argue about it to this day. But it is the fact that lawyers can go in, and he dealt with it. Okay, I can't get that evidence in. There's nothing more that I can do about it. It doesn't do any reason to hold my head down or grouse about the judge to his face. I'm sure he growls to others about it. And so that's a really beautiful thing that happens in the law, and when you have really good attorneys involved. And we're pretty lucky in the 13th. We have lots of good attorneys that appear before us, and that was always the most joyful thing that I had. So it didn't come into evidence, and so the book, we're talking about the book, we're now years later, and we're at my house. Cecily is there also, and we're having a drink, and we're probably 2 drinks into it, sitting on the patio, and he turns to me and says something like, you're still full of crap. You could have, and that's when he disclosed to me this grand jury thing. Yeah. And I said, that's how prejudicial it was. That's how prejudicial it was.
That's how probative it
That's
was.
how probative. And so, we still love it. Now, there was another issue that happened in trial that was very interesting, and that is the polygraph.
Oh, man. So, you want to explain
Well,
it?
I'll give the backdrop. Polygraphs do not get mentioned in evidence. They are highly prejudicial. And let me mention one more thing about the digging tools. Defense didn't initially object because of the nexus issue. The defense objected because they didn't want it to be called a burglary, right?
Right.
And you were saying...
We won't call it a burglary. We don't think it was a burglary anyway. We think it was him retrieving his own tools.
Right, and that kind of cleansing of evidence often happens in trials. Something comes up, and it is maybe a statement is made to a police officer under circumstances where it's inappropriate to say that it was a police officer that the statement was made. So it's like, isn't it true on August 7th that you said to that guy standing in the bar, that tall guy, da-da-da-da-da-da. So we immediately threw out the burglary issue and said that's really not an issue. But I was startled that the defense didn't get to the issue of nexus. But
you did.
I did. I'm sorry. And we'll still be, you will see us and I won't make it 20 years, in 10 years. I'll give myself 10 years. You'll hold me up and say, you are still an idiot. You missed it there. And I'll go, no.
I've never called him an idiot.
No, you would not to my face. And I appreciate it. But there was another big issue that happened in trial. And so polygraphs don't come into evidence. It's tricky. There's some things that can come in, but you don't even mention them. And so...
when they were investigating this originally, Egbert, they finally found Johnny Wright had run off to St. Louis right after Becky was gone, and they convinced, he knew he was a person of interest, and so they convinced him to come to Jeff City, and Egbert met him down there at the Highway Patrol and interviewed him, and then talked him into doing a polygraph. And during this polygraph, the polygrapher said he had failed, but Johnny had learned that Harry Moore is the one who had kind of outed him a little bit, or had suggested that Johnny was the last one to be seen with him. So he and Harry Moore were roommates, and he was very upset about this. So he had come up to Columbia immediately after that polygraph and that interview, and he had gone back. That's the house over there on Providence. It sits close to Hickman. It's not there anymore. And had gone in there, and they had words, and Johnny had pulled out a gun and fired it at Harry. Harry had run out the front door across the street. Johnny went out the back, jumped a fence, lost his floppy hat, which was part of the evidence. But at trial, we can't mention that he failed a polygraph. You can't mention the word polygraph. It's not going to come in. And we went over this pre-trial. This can't be mentioned. Well, Ben White, who's an investigator with the office, is up there. And what was relevant about the whole thing was that Johnny's reaction to Harry Moore without mentioning a polygraph. So this had all come in, sanitized without the word polygraph. The jury had no clue that a polygraph had been that it was just an interview, is what they thought, right? Well, Ben White, who's an investigator with the office, I forget what question I'm asking, but then he says, well, yes, after Johnny had finished his polygraph or something like that, And
So the air goes out of the courtroom.
oh, it was at the very end of the trial, about 3 days in, and I'm standing there at that podium, and when Ben says that, and this is why I don't play cards, I went, just like this. And then Judge Oxenhandler took over and cleaned it up.
I had a couple of things that I could do. I could give an oral instruction right then and say, hey, there's been mention polygraph is not admissible, just disregard it. And I had a professor in law school by the name of Elwood Thomas who taught me evidence, and Elwood said, well, that's like telling kids not to put beans in their nose. You know, you're not going to, it's done. The beans are going to be there. And I could also give a written instruction at the end of the trial, but it would be the same kind of problem. So I thought about it overnight, and I came back the next morning, and I said, look, I'm going to give it an oral instruction to the jury, and I'm going to, we don't know what he's talking about. There was no polygraph in this case. And Richard says to me, you mean you're going to lie to the jury? And I go, yeah, I'm going to lie to the jury. And that's what I did. And it wasn't an issue on appeal, so it went to sleep. But I thought, you know, this was this cleansing. There was no downside to it. We just cleaned up the evidence. And so it wasn't even an issue that was raised on appeal. So I want to take some questions that you all have. Questions or comments or anything like that. I know we're right at your wall. Questions? Got some. Okay, good. Thank you, Richard. You can stay up here. Maybe something's for you.
Mine's not much of a question, but my first date was with Becky Doisey's younger sister, Kathy. My older brother dated the older daughter, Debbie.
Wow.
My aunt took care of Dr. Doisey when he was old. And Becky came to our house on Ripley and Richardson about a week before she disappeared. But Becky was the striking one. She was the, if a family has kind of your star, because she was just so outgoing and beautiful. But all I wanted to really say was we are so thankful that this ended. And I think you have a town of Kirkwood, you have a lot of people close to the family who are just so thankful after decades that this had a resolution. So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for getting that resolution.
Yeah, he did that.
So you know Kathy very well?
Kathy is in town, but I haven't seen her since 5 years.
I'm not going to ruin the book. This is not a spoiler. Cecily and I ended up getting married, and we got married in Kathy Doisey's backyard.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, now that he's raising this, I'm going to tell you, when they're trying the case, the two prosecutors, in a recess, as a judge, Judge Harris knows this, you see everything in the courtroom. I mean, you're paying attention to the witness, you're listening to counsel, you're paying attention to your jury, you're waiting for your marshals to signal you, you're seeing if something is happening out in the gallery that you need to be concerned about. And my court reporter says, what's going on between the two prosecutors? And, you know, maybe they touched elbows or something. And, of course, I talked to them later, many years, and they go, no, there was nothing going on. There was, and I assume, I'm very confident that wasn't the case. And they ended up you got married. I mean, give me a break. And it did not impact upon the presentation in any way. And so, next question, yes.
Where can we get the book?
Oh, thank you. You can get the book. It's at Skylark, and it's on Amazon, and we just did Kindle, and we're probably doing an audio. We're trying to figure out if it's got legs beyond my local celebrity status. And so, which may not be the case. And just mentioning this, the writing of the book was a really interesting, looking back project. What's occurred post-publication has been simply amazing for me because I have the opportunity to talk to groups, and I suddenly realized I'm the worldwide expert on this book. And it just is, it's so much fun. It's double fun because I love coming to Rotary and then making the presentation and then having a chance to battle again with Richard. I love it. Yes?
2 questions. 1, did they find the body?
No.
And 2, did they find him guilty?
Yes. Yeah, it won't ruin anything. Yes, the jury found him guilty.
On the body situation, we had an opportunity before this went to trial, and we spoke with Kathy about, because that was the main family member we were dealing with, about whether we would approach Mr. Wright with because he was old. He was like old, I shouldn't say.
Really?
Yeah, I know. He was 68, I think. Anyway, he was. I know my audience, but he was a young man, and anyway, we had gone. The reason I say that in the Department of Corrections, once you hit, I think it's 74, the amount of time you have to do can just decrease it drastically. And so we had gone to Kathy and said, hey, we could approach him and find out if he knows the location of the body and give him a good deal, he might give that up. And Kathy didn't want to have anything to do with that.
And, you know, victim and victim advocates, they have a lot to do with dispositions in criminal cases. That's something that's changed over the last 25 years. And that the opportunity for a victim or victims to come into the courtroom prior to sentencing and tell their story about how this event has impacted upon their lives and the lives of their family members. And so asking that question is a really big deal. Then you go, well, is there a bigger picture here? Do I ignore that? And I know that the prosecution team thought through that. Okay.
Oh, there you go.
Good. All right. Good. Those are all mine. So wait, you got 2 minutes to hear a great story? All right. So there were many interesting things that came out post-trial, like the prosecutors getting married. It's in the epilogue of the book. One of the things is the house where a shooting took place was at 711 North Providence Road, which is now Planned Parenthood. And a lady was charged with trespassing. She was demonstrating at Planned Parenthood. And she demanded a jury trial. And at that time, the demand of a jury trial in city court went up to a circuit judge. It was randomly assigned to me. And the parties came to me at some point and they said, Judge, we want to waive the jury trial. We want to try the case to you. And I said, that's fine. We set it for trial. Everybody's there the day of trial. And I look out into the gallery, and there's a buddy of mine from kindergarten who's a lawyer in Kansas City who's never been in my courtroom. Doug Gertner is his name. And I go, Mr. Gertner, approach. This is like, we're all on the record. And he comes up, and I said, Douglas, what are you doing here? He says, I represent Planned Parenthood nationally. And we've been following the case, and I'm not in this case, but we're just here. I saw your name, and I'm just here to see it. So I say, step away, stop in to see me in chambers afterwards. He steps away, and I say to everybody on the record, you've seen Mr. Gertner come up here. You know he represents Planned Parenthood nationally, and he's a buddy of mine since kindergarten. It's not going to have any impact upon me, but if you want another judge, I'll go find another judge to try the case this morning. And they said, no, just proceed. So they proceed with the case, and the city prosecutor makes an egregious error in the city case. And as a result of that, after the city presents their evidence, I acquit the defendant. And Gertner, I watch his head explode when that happens, and I go back up to chambers, and he comes into my office. I can't believe it. And what they had failed to do was to show that this lady had stepped over the boundary line. And they could have done it by someone identifying it, but the National Planned Parenthood had given them a survey, which they could have put in evidence, and they didn't do that. And so we never knew whether or not the prosecuting attorney fell on his sword. Maybe politically he felt that he didn't want this lady to be prosecuted. And really, I'll express to you, I would have liked nothing more than to have found her guilty and fined her $10 and gotten on down the road. So come 3 months later, Judge Azel walks into my office and she says, Judge, have you seen the big article about you in Missouri Catholic Magazine? And I go, well, no, I let my subscription lapse. And I look at the article, and it's an article lauding what an incredibly insightful judge I am for doing what I did. And so I go, jump ahead now. I'm retiring. I'm giving my state of the Gary Oxenhandler to the bar. And I tell everybody the story, and everybody is just laughing their heads off. And I say, of course, it was the first time that Missouri Catholic Magazine gave headlines to a Jew. And everybody thinks that's funny. And then I pause and I go, no, actually, it was the second Jew. And it was rolling laughter. It wasn't like over the top, but it was rolling. In any event, thank you for letting me do this and talk about the book. If you do get it and you want to write a review about it, that would be great. We didn't let everything out of the box. Richard just to read the book, to read his closing argument is just spectacular. You would understand that Brother Ron's kid can really preach a closing argument. So, thank you very much.
Please stick around for you got time to
Sure.
stick around for questions?
Yeah, sure.
All right, would you please pick a number?
Okay.
And this guy back here, Joe, he can't get it, so.
Okay.
He's won the last 2 times he's been here.
Well, this just says Joe on it.
All right, good job. All right.
It's probably the last 4.
Yeah.
0732.
0732.
There you go.
All right. There you go.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes. Anybody have any questions? I'm happy to answer them, or I know Richard is also, and I know that you're on a timeline, so whatever. All right. Sure, Rachel. My pleasure. My pleasure.
It was a very good conversation.
Oh, good. Glad you enjoyed it. Chris, nice to see you. Thank you. Yes. Yes. March 14th. Stayed at Fort Leonard Wood the whole time. Ended up being a chief legal clerk for a brigade. And it wasn't nice. I mean, I was around nice people, but it was, even now I have to like think through it, you know, it really. Is that right? There you go. So where were you? I was in. I think I was in the 2nd Brigade. That's interesting. So we were there at the same. Yeah, yeah. And you know, the commanding general was Bradley. It was Bradley because I played handball with him. He was a handball player. And whenever there was a major felony on base, they'd come and get me, and I'd go, you know, help them out because I knew more than a lot of, you know, just because I had been there a while and sort of got the system a little bit. So it was, thank you for your service. There you go.